used to be the 5th grade Javits teacher way back when, a long time ago. And then I became the literacy coach for the building. And the literacy coach means that I deal with reading problems, reading for the children, not problems, but I actually help with the reading and the literacy program. I help the teachers actually with what they need to know. And as far as state exams, I normally am the one that gives these workshops. In your packet that is being passed out to you right now, you're going to find the sample of what the children will be looking at this year for 4th grade ELA and math. And you're going to see there's an agenda, then there's other, the list of dates, the dates for the state testing, which is, I believe, in the back, where the test this year will actually be, as you can look down on it, look down on the page, is Tuesday, April 16th to Thursday, April 18th. So that would be the dates for the ELA exam. Then there are makeup dates for February, April 19th to Tuesday, April 23rd. And the math will be Wednesday, April 24th to Friday, April 26th. And then there are makeup dates, Monday, April 29th to Wednesday, May 1st. So that's just a little overview for you that you might want to stick on your refrigerator, highlight it, so that, you know, as it gets closer, your children should be saying to you, well, we're doing some type of test prep with them, getting them ready for this exam. Okay, so now, with that said, I'd like to go over, if you're looking at the packet, you should see, it says range of informational text. And it should look like this. And it's right behind the text. It says that? Yes, that's the one. So here, on the range of informational text. So on the state exam, which does encompass 3, 4, and 5, you will see this top page on all the grades where here they're going to be exposed to a lot of mostly non-fiction work or informational text. Yes, they still will have some narratives or stories, as you say, you know, try to understand it, but mostly the exams will be all about information. And as you know, maybe you remember when you were in school, you know that was difficult to be able to absorb, to handle, to read through. So we have to get the children, you know, ready and set to know the difference of what informational text would be like and what a narrative would be like, just like a story. But they would have to pull out certain information. So here you will see for expository, where they're going to use textbooks and like science books, social studies books, reports, tourism guides, magazine articles. They do love to put magazine articles on this exam. So there you're going to see the children, we're going to try to expose them as much to those types of expository text. Then you have argumentative, where they might have to give their opinion or read an opinion and be able to understand, is this person for something or against? And they can be asked also, especially in the extended response, to write their opinion. So we are exposing them to a lot of that type of genre right now. Advertisements they do put on, political propaganda they might have on it, journal articles, all governmental documents, all those things as well, they need to be exposed to. Instructions, where you have the training manuals or contracts, user guides and manuals, legal documents, even recipes. They might be asked to, you know, to look at and to decipher what is going on in that. Then, of course, the narratives that I just talked about, it could be still narratives on it, biographies, which has to do and history, memoirs that they might have to, you know, look at it and also understand what that is all about. And so, as you can see, like I said, this is across the board, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. These are all the things that the children will be exposed to one way or the other. Okay? There's no difference between 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade on that. They have to know all of that eventually. Okay, let's turn the page. And here is our testing session and times now. This is quite critical for you to understand and to know. This year on the test, this year's test actually, will be 3 days. But if you notice, on the 2nd day, there are 2 books. Book day 1 will consist of 1 book. Day 2 will consist of book 2 and 3. And day 3 will consist of book 4. That is also across the board, 3, 4, and 5. But this year is special in a sense. There is no listening component on this year's exam. Usually we will always have a component where we are reading a story to the children, and then they would have to go in without the text in front of them and answer questions. This year, Pearson has decided, well, Pearson is going to create the exam. They decided no listening portion this year. Okay? So, because the rationale actually is that the kids might not know how to take notes. It's more difficult for them to be able to answer the questions once they don't have the piece of text in front of them. So, no listening this year. If you notice day 1, which would be book 1, it's estimated task of about 50 minutes. But it's really 70. Between having instructions read, getting everything done, it's actually about 70 minutes the children would have. But this is an estimated time of the task. It should take the children to finish. It's about 50 minutes. Second,
cut down from last year.
That's cut down from last year. 90 minutes?
90 minutes.
It was too long. It was too much. But if your child does have an IEP, if your child does need the hour and a half or whatever, a double, we actually gave time and a half now. If your child needs it, then fine. Don't worry about it. The child will have the time. But we find that the timing is so long, the kids are like burnt out. They just can't handle it anymore. So it's actually cut down in time from last year. So if we're 2 and 3 on day 2, once again, it's another 50 minutes, but it's about 70 if the kids need that much time, right? And here, for 4, for the 3rd day, another 50 minutes. So in total, estimated time, this entire test between day 1, 2, and 3 should be about 150 minutes. But here, as you can see with the asterisk sign, it says, each testing day will be scheduled to allow 70 minutes for completion. So, really, if your child needed that extra time, they would get it. All right? And as it says, the test must be administered under standard conditions, and the directions must be followed carefully. So that's the timing on the exam. So this is new timing as well. It's also new for us. All right? Any questions on that, on the time? Okay. You will have actually after the session, we have a Q&A where there will be questions and answers, and we will have an evaluation form where if you still have lingering questions, you can write them on the form, and we will absolutely get back to you on that question if I won't be able to answer that for you during that time. Because you might go home and think about, oh, I forgot to ask that question, then you can always come back and write it in your child's book, bring it back to us, and we'll try to answer it for you as best as we can. Now, the little top up there is just for your, for you to read that. The state says one thing and the city says another thing. Here, for the city, we're going by what the city is saying, where it talks about when students have completed their test. No, they will not be able to pull out a book. No, no, no. If you're finished, you will sit there and you will wait till everyone has finished. Why is that? Well, the rationale is if Johnny sees that Harry has finished and is pulling out a book, Johnny's going to hurry up and finish his and not go back in the exam to fix whatever, or to go over it. We always stress here in PS 233, go over the exam, not just take it once, sit there and don't do anything else. We strongly, that's one of our strategies, we strongly advise the children, go back, look over your work. There's got to be, you've made a mistake somewhere along the line. Do not just sit there and do, or, to say that you pull out a book to read. No. So here you'll see where the state says yes, but the city says no. We're going by what the city says. There will be no pulling out a book. They will have to sit there and wait until every child is finished. When we say time is up, then we will take the test from the child. We also do need at that point, though, to build the children's stamina, meaning to be able to get through this exam, be able to focus, be able to take this exam, and not dawdle or do other things. So we do need, they're going to need all the time. Believe me, they probably won't have too much time leeway, especially in the ELA. Now, here is the test design. This is the critical piece as well that you should know how your children, what your children will take in that time. So if you look down at the little table, it says the 2013 grade 4 Common Core English Language Arts test design. So on day 1, your child will have passages, 5 of them. 5 passages that you will see an example of in a few minutes. In book 1, in book 2, they will have 1 passage. In book 3, they will have 2 passages. And in book 4, they will have 3. So in total for the entire exam for day 1, 2, and 3, they will be responsible for reading 11 passages. The multiple choice questions now. Well, in book 1, they will have 30 questions, and then in day 2, book 2, they will have 7. So in total, they will have 37 multiple choice questions. Now, in times past, the multiple choice weighs a lot. Okay, that's the way you're part of this exam. So if your child, we have to encourage the children, which we will teaching them strategies on how to do elimination, taking 50-50, getting the 2 questions that they think they know is right, and then hone in on those 2, and try to pick your best educated guess at that point. You really don't know the answer. But the multiple choice, like I said, is extremely important to their grade. Years back when, I think, at the summer, I think it was like 67% of their grade. It weighed a lot. So if your child basically failed the multiple choice in years past, the kid would not, you would get like a 2, maybe 1. So here, we're still not sure how they're going to grade this exam, because this is brand new for us. So for me to say to you, well, that's going to be more weighty, we're not sure, but we are thinking in our mind.
We're not sure, but
right.
Chances are it will again weigh more than the other portions of the exam,
yes,
because they put so much emphasis on it. And that is the part of the exam where stamina really becomes an issue. With the first day and the 5 passages that they have to read, now they have less time to read those passages, and the questions that they will be asked to respond to will be not just questions about who's in the story and what happened in the story, but the questions will require them to read, think about the answer, and go back and find evidence in the text to support their answer. The strategies that we're talking about teaching them as far as eliminating possibilities that are going to become less and less useful with these types of exams, the way the exams are going, because they're designing them in such a way that they will put responses on there that they expect students to choose as an incorrect answer. Correct. So they're designing this to combat just teaching the children good test-taking strategies. That is no longer going to be sufficient. That's why we have to come together and do this, because those test booklets that they have out, we give it to them, and they read, and they answer questions, and then you check. That's not going to be helpful anymore. It's not a matter of just being able to figure out what the test taker is sticking in there to fool you, because all of the responses will require students to think, and what they must understand is if they can't go back to the passage and find evidence to support the answer, then the answer is likely incorrect. And they'll have to do that over those 5 passages in just 60 minutes of time. That is the big instructional push this year, and so my guess is that is going to be the portion of the exam that is most weighted. So if they bomb on day one, then they will have a really difficult time recovering to pass more than a level 2 on that exam. If they do really well on that exam and not as well on day 3, because if you notice day 2 now has a multiple choice component as well, then there's still a chance for them to get at least a level 3. But if they don't do well on the multiple choice portion of the exam, you can almost forget about them getting anything higher than a level 2. And they're also reconsidering even having a level 2. Because in the past, level 2 has meant that they are partially meeting the standard. They're really redefining level 2 now and thinking about whether level 2 will even be an option for students now. So day 1, those 5 passages, those 30 questions. Day 2, how many passages? 2 passages with the 5, or 1 passage with the 5 questions become critical. And that's why, and you'll see after you start looking at the exam, you've got to make sure they're reading at home and you're talking to them about what they're reading. If that's not happening now, it needs to start happening from tonight, or we are doomed. I'm telling you, there's no way around it. Okay?
So as you said, the multiple choice is weighing a lot. And also, when you thinking about the short answer and the extended, it's people that are grading them. So, it's subjective in a sense, where we are going to be the ones grading it. Well, I'm one of those that normally will be on the team to grade. And we do, have to say, we look at it, we try to understand what the children are writing, we look at a rubric. And that's why it's not as weighty as the multiple choice. So that's also another rationale as why the multiple choice is so critical. Okay. Short response questions. The children will see that on day 2, but that will be book 3. And they're going to have 3 short response questions. And on day 3, book 4, they will have 5. So that total will be 8 short response questions. The extended response questions will be on day 2 again, book 3, 1 extended response, and then on day 4, book 4, they will have 1 extended response questions, and you will see an example of that as we get into the test process. Any questions on the test design? Okay. So let's turn the page. Here, we just gave you the test blueprint of what the area of focus would be, approximate percentage of points. So the reading standard here would be 100% of points required for close reading. The language and writing standards, up to 45% of points require writing and command of the language. So they're giving you the breakdown of as to the points that the children possibly can have. So the approximate percent of reading points, we have the key ideas and details, craft and structure, and then the integration of knowledge and ideas. You can see the percentages underneath. So the key ideas and details is up to 65%. The craft and structure is about 35%, and integration of knowledge and ideas is up to about 30%, which would be, the whole thing would be 100%. Actually, the first 2 is 100% there on the reading points. The other part of it is just the format, where it will be multiple choice, as we discussed before.
I'm sorry, can we go back a little bit?
Sure.
This test blueprint, what you see under area of focus, it says reading standards, RL and RI. This comes from the Common Core standards that teachers are teaching from. This is the document that states what every 4th grader should leave 4th grade knowing how to do proficiently. So it's broken up into RL, which stands for reading literature, and RI, reading informational text. 50% of the exam will be on them responding to literature. 50% will be them responding to information and text. And then the language and the writing standards that they're talking about also come from the Common Core. The language talks about grammar, the type of words that they should be able to use in conversation and in their writing. And then the writing standards talk about how they are able to write basically 3 different types of writing we're supposed to focus on this year. And that's writing opinion pieces, writing narratives, and writing expository.
Right.
Those are 3 types of writing that they're being given instruction on this year. You can go to, and I think it's earlier in this document, they give you Engage New York. That's one of the websites that you can go to where you can look up the Common Core standards, or you can Google Common Core standards for 4th grade, and you'll have an opportunity to see exactly what it is that students on 4th grade are expected to be able to do in reading, language, and writing.
Also, you can go onto the school's website, ps233.org. On the home page, there's a widget on the right side that says Common Core. When that opens up, you just scroll down to the grade that you're interested in, and then it'll have math, reading, and you can go into those categories and find the information there as well, if that's faster for
Yeah, that will be faster. Use that.
Okay, so to go through what the multiple choice questions are like. Okay, so they're designed to assess Common Core reading and language standards. This is from essential. They will ask students to analyze different aspects of a given text, including central idea, style elements, character and plot development, and vocabulary. For multiple choice questions, students will select the correct response from 4 answer choices. So at least that hasn't changed. 4 answers that they'll be given choices, and they have to select one. So the multiple choice question will assess the reading standards in a range of ways. Some will ask students to analyze aspects of text or vocabulary. Many questions will require students to combine the skills. Okay? For example, questions may ask students to identify a segment of text that best supports the central idea. To answer correctly, a student must first comprehend the central idea and then show understanding of how that idea is supported. So that is very important. Unless the child comprehends what they're asking for the central idea, the other part of it, they won't be able to analyze. They have to know them both, to combine them both. Questions will require more than rote recall of information. Students will also be required to negotiate plausible, text-based distractors. Each distractor requires students to meaningfully comprehend what they have read in order to discern the correct response. Now, those distractors, as Thomas said, was the test taker throwing in an answer there that seems to sound right, looks good, but that may not be the answer.
It won't be the answer.
Right. It won't be. Right. Okay, it looks good, but it definitely won't be. So they have to be. They're going to have to be able to navigate between what is the correct answer and what isn't. And the distractors, they're going to have to be able to look at it, analyze it, and make sure and to think, that can't be the answer. All right. So this is where it becomes more difficult for our students. Okay, so now we're going to look at the format of the short response. And an example. Short response questions are designed to assess Common Core reading and language standards. These are single questions in which students will be required to provide textual evidence to support their answer. These questions ask the student to make a claim, take a position, or draw a conclusion, and then provide 2 pieces of text-based evidence to support his or her answer. Okay? Now, these responses are usually on the rubric 2 points, but as you can see that when we talk about giving an opinion or drawing a conclusion, giving an opinion or take a the student to make a claim, they're going to need to back up their claim by going back in the text and finding where in the text did I get this answer, what I'm responding to. So no longer is Johnny going to say, yes, I agree with the opinion, or, the author is saying this. Now the child is required to go back in the text, look at where the child is saying, okay, that's where I'm going to get my, that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. Okay? They have to back up what they're saying. And I have found over the years of scoring exams that when we ask the children for 2 examples, they will give us 1. 1. And obviously, that's the score they probably will get if it's correctly written. But they would see the lines, and they would just write the 1, and clearly it says, give us 2 examples. So we are trying to push the children now to make sure that they not only go back in the text, but to give us those 2 examples that they're asking for.
And that speaks very closely to stamina, again.
Right.
Because a lot of the children give you one answer because it's tied right, or they don't have anything else to say, they think. But we can start training them differently by doing to them what they do to us as little ones when they ask why. All the time, everything is why.
Exactly.
Why? Why? That's what we have to start throwing back to students now and having them be able to justify just about anything that they say to you. They ask you for something, why? And they need to be able to give rational explanations for why they want to do certain things or why they feel a certain way. We can no longer allow them to give us one-word responses and move on. They have to be able to articulate their wants, their needs, their opinions, and be able to justify that. Children argue all the time. If you listen, they know how to do that. When they're arguing with their sisters and brothers, they know how to have strong opinions and give reasons for why they feel that way. Now we have to teach them how to transfer that same skill into academics, because that's what they're going to be expected to do. And if you ask for 2, then you edited 2. We gave the acuity exam in ELA week before last.
Yes.
And I was in a 4th grade exam as that test was being taken. And as I walked around and read each response, they asked the students to explain why they thought the information in one story was better than the information in another story. And once they chose the story that they thought was best, they had to give their reason why, and then explain why they didn't think the other story's information was sufficient. And then so that's using details and evidence from both stories. All of them gave why they thought the information in one story was the best, and after I say they need to see the other part of the question. So not letting them off the hook for those types of things. If I say 2, if you give 2 pieces of evidence in the homework, and they only give you 1, and they don't explain why, then that's not enough. We have to go back and do it again, because that will help them develop the stamina. And then challenging them verbally and making them articulate why they want to do certain things or why they're asking certain questions will allow them to practice being able to defend their ideas and cite evidence, which can then transfer into them being able to do it in their life.
Okay. So now, the purpose of the short response questions is to assess the student's ability to comprehend and to analyze the text. In responding to these questions, students will be expected to write incomplete sentences. Responses should require no more than 3 complete sentences. And then there's a rubric that's used to evaluate it. So with the short responses, we do not expect, a whole lot, but obviously we're expecting the child to give us the answer that they are requiring of them. It could be, and it should be no less actually than 3, sentences. The child could have more. It's okay. Because we do have certain tests that happen in acuity where they give you certain lines. And the children just feel, well, those are the lines given, I have to fill up those lines and stop. No. They can keep writing if they choose to. Hopefully, I mean, they'll go on and say, not give wrong answers. But some kids just think, we did notice that, and we have felt that we need to teach the children, even though they might just give those lines, you can give more. It's okay. All right? Extended response now. So the extended response questions are designed to assess writing from sources. They will focus primarily on Common Core writing standards. Extended response questions will require comprehension and analysis of either an individualized text or paired text. Paired text requires students to read and analyze two related texts. Paired texts are related by theme, genre, tone, time period, or other characteristics. Many extended response questions will ask students to express a position and support it with text-based evidence, which is what we were just talking about before. For paired text, students will be expected to synthesize ideas between and draw evidence from both texts. Extended response questions allow students to demonstrate their ability to write a coherent essay using textual evidence to support their ideas. So it's all about the students having the stamina, once again, to read these two long passages. Be able to synthesize, meaning be able to think about what they're reading, and then answering, as Spellman gave us two examples of what was on the acuity recently, where they're going to need to either give an opinion as to why one text is better than the other, and then be able to come up with a coherent essay about both, and then using evidence from the text. So basically our push these days is go back to the text, go back in there. We see children time and time again. They will read it once, and then that's it, done, I'm over it. Whereas this acuity, by the way, we noticed that there was the texts were given on the two for them to answer the short response. But then they also gave the text again on another page, same text. And we watched a couple of kids do makeup. They felt they read it the first time. They didn't need to go read it again when they got to the extended response. So we said to them after the test was over, but they gave you the text again for a reason, for you to reread it now to do the extended response. Years past, it would only be the one time. They give you the text, gave you the short responses, and that was it. And then they'll go on to give you the extended response, and you have to look back. This time they did it differently. They actually printed it 2 times. And for the children to read it again in order to now answer the extended response. The kids did not go back and read it again to answer the extended response. So there is where we're going to need to have them develop their stamina and to let them understand, well, they printed it again for you to read it again because there was so much information in it in the first place. How could you answer that extended response without going back and looking at it again? Okay? So there we saw a little problem right there, which is good. We do have these acuities, actually, and it was more Common Core aligned this time, which the teachers were very happy to see, that the acuities before did not match what they were getting as a test. We always thought, why is that? But now they are, and now we as teachers were seeing this way of them testing children now, and it's not pretty. I mean, it's long, it's arduous and tedious, and they do need to build the stamina to read those text pieces again. Because, as we said, a lot of it might be informational. And that's a lot of information for you to internalize. So for you to answer that extended response, you do need to go back into the text, and you will need to pull the evidence for what you are saying back into your writing. Okay? Now, let's go on. Oh, you have to. So now, if you turn the page, here is the way it's, now this is the first time parents were giving these things to parents. You need to know how this is going to be scored. So this one, when we talk about rubric, some of you would hear that term, but you're not sure what it means. This is what we call a rubric. For everything we do in our classrooms, every writing piece, even in math, social studies, science, when we give an assessment to the children, there is a rubric. Because how do the children know how am I doing if I don't tell them, well, to get a 1, this is what you have, or to get a 2, or to get 0 points. This is what is required of you. So here you can go through the features of a 2-point response. So you go to the highest one, where here you have to have a valid inference and or claim from the text were required by the prompt, and the prompt is the question. Evidence of analysis of the text were required by the prompt. So there's that evidence we want to see. If your answer does not include those those first 2 bullets, you cannot get a 2. Here's the other bullet in order to get a full 2. Relevant facts, definitions, concrete details, and or other information from the text to develop response according to the requirements of the prompt. You cannot just give me half of the prompt and expect to get a 2. It's not going to happen. Sufficient number of facts, definitions, concrete details, and or other information from the text as required by the prompt. Complete sentences where errors do not impact readability. Because if I am reading it and scoring it and I don't understand what you're saying, if I cannot read it, you are definitely not getting to it. So here, children have to know it has to be coherent. I'm going to have to be able to read it. I will have to know how to understand. I'm going to have to try to understand what you are saying. So that also will give you the 2. So let's compare it to what a 1 would look like. The features of a 1-point response are a multitude, literal counting of events or details from the text as required by the prompt. Some, if you notice some, in order to get a 1, you can give me some relevant facts, definitions, concrete details, and other information from the text to develop response according to the requirements of the prompt, and incomplete sentences or bullets. So there, you still can get a 1 if those requirements are fulfilled. So, but if you notice the difference between the 2 and the 1, the 2 has to be practically perfect in the sense where you are writing incomplete sentences. You are understanding what you're writing, and obviously, and you're answering the prompt. Fair enough? And of course, 0, you can read that where if the child gives a blank answer, that always is a 0. The response is not written in English. Sometimes we see where children in the native language might decide to write in their native language, or if we see it combined, there we cannot score it. A response that is unintelligible or indecipherable, that we cannot read it at all. Indecipherable, we cannot, then it's a 0. Okay? So we must stress upon our children also in their writing that it must be clearly legible, that we are able to read it, and of course, to be able to write in the complete, full sentences for us to understand what you're saying. Okay. So that's just an example of a rubric. Here, I'm not going to go through the whole 4 points. You can take them home. The 4-point, now, because the extended response is an essay now, where you're going to have to make actually write an essay. The scoring points are higher. Instead of having a 2, now you have 4 points for this. And this is just a breakdown of what the Common Core, from the Common Core, they're taking the rubric from this time, where there's a content and analysis portion, the command of evidence. There's that evidence again going back into the text that they must quote, cite from, coherence, organization, and style, and of course control of convention, where we're talking about the grammar, the usage, the spelling, even capitalization, punctuation. All right, there we do take into consideration. But I do want to say, for the 3rd grade, I mean, even though it's a push for us, sometimes as we're scoring it, it's not such a big deal as what the kid is saying. We need to know that the child is comprehending and giving us what the prompt is asking. Okay? So here on the other side, you're going to see the bigger picture as to how the Common Core, this is New York State grades 4 and 5. This is what your children will be on the expository writing evaluation rubric. There, the child will get a 4. So even that is a little bit changed where, where they're looking to have this, to get a 4, you're exceeding actually the standard at that point. Okay. So
they don't give out their 4s.
Yeah. It's got to be really insightful.
So if we start talking about how you can help at home, when you're looking over homework and looking over their writing, this is the column that you want to always judge their work by. Judge their work by the level 4 so that you can help us train them to be able to do those things. We're not interested in what you have to do to just get a 2. So start looking at that level 4 column and seeing how you can push them and encourage them to do what the level 4 column is asking them to do.
Okay. So now we're going to take a real quick look because I want us to get into the test. I really want you guys to see it and even take a part of the test to see how your stamina will be. But so let's take a look at the 2013 grade 4 Common Core math test now. And you're going to see the timings again. So you know what? Before we do get into the math and the breakdown, let's take out actually the sample test. 10, 12 minutes maybe you spend on looking at taking that part of the exam. No.
5 passages, you think, and 50 minutes, they have approximately 10 minutes per passage. That's how
long it is.
Yeah, that's how it lays out. And when you look at just that first story, a lot of things should kind of come to mind. When you think about them reading, internalizing that story, and then applying what they read, because they're not going to have time to read that more than one time, and then go and look at the questions that were asked and how they responded to the questions.
But then we also have to tell them, I mean, if some children did finish, they need to go back in anyway. Go back in there, make sure if they have that time, that 1 or 2 minutes, don't just close the book and go, I'm going to finish, I'll just wait. Encourage them, please go back in. Look at the questions again. Maybe I misread the question. Okay? So that we also need to do. So for number 1, we list over the answers for this real quick. So it says, read this line from paragraph 2 of the story. So there we also need to let the children know what is paragraph 2. They need to know where it is. But they give it to you right here in the italics. Have you many friends near here? The mother hawk asked the father hawk. So mother hawk asked this question because she did what? Why do you think she asked it? Yes. Okay, B is the correct answer. And it's the rationale behind B is correct is she's worried that they do not have friends close by if they were ever in need of help. So B is the correct answer. But look at the rest of them. Needs a new place to live, feels lonely on the shore, know that the hunters are coming. Okay? So, other children might not have chosen B. They might have chosen what other one that you think they might have chosen. C. It could be C. Feels lonely on the shore. And we've seen this. We've looked at it and go, see, why? But you see where those distractors come in? Yeah. Okay.
And then also after D is another one that they might choose because they read the story and the hundreds throughout the story. Right. They could very well choose D.
That's what I was thinking too. D was definitely a big distractor. Okay. Number 2, what do you think? C, absolutely. The plot of the story builds on Father Hawk doing what Mother Hawk requests. Okay? What other one could the children have chosen, you think? So you think that one was just right there? I'm sorry? Could have been it. Right. Mother Hawk tries to get Father Hawk to change his mind. It's a possibility. So there. Right. There you go. So there is where we're going to have the children understand. So you have to ask them questions to have them see if they understand or comprehend what they are reading. Okay, number 3. What do you think quickly? Okay. I'm sorry, what's B? B. Okay. So B was a distractor. D is the answer. Yes. Because the hunters are trying to catch the young hawk to eat for breakfast. So let's take a look at that one again now. So they're going to look on paragraph 25, and that's why they also number it for them. Danger has come to us, said the father hawk, and he told the turtle about the hunters. What danger is Father Hawk worried about? So we know the answer, the hunters want to eat Father Hawk's young, but look at B. The hunters have set a fire to burn down Father Hawk's nest. Some children might decide to choose that one. Okay, because, I mean, it wasn't the story, but you have to understand. It says, what danger is Father Hawk worried about? And he is worried about, well, the hunters coming to eat the young. And D was the correct answer for that one. And all of these are Common Core aligned, because here it definitely gives us this is the reading literature 4.3, that yes, these children have to leave us at the end of June knowing things like this, because it gets tougher and harder in 5th grade. Okay? Let's go to number 4. So, you notice both the letters that are bold in there. That is the reason they do it like that, because they want the main theme. So, the questions are the kids are going to read through these, and what do you think the piece of dialogue that supports the story's main theme? What do you think on that one? A. Okay, we have A. Anybody else? C. We have C. B. You see how this is? And we do this in class. We do this in class, and we go, okay, let's narrow it to the 50-50. Let's see what it could possibly be. So it says here, let us stay here tonight, they say, and see what we can find in the morning. That's paragraph 7. Here we have, go back quickly and comfort your friend, your mate, and say that I am coming. See, sooner or later these men will get our young. So I did hear A and a B and a C. I don't think anybody said C, correct? No. Okay, so we ruled that one out. So that we're down to like actually a 75-25, where we have 3 possible good answers. So the rationale for this then is, well, the answer I should say is B. And the rationale for this is, the main theme of the story is that friends help each other in times of need. Did they not end that at the end? Did they say that at the end? This statement by the Kingfisher illustrates that theme. So when they threw that last part at the end, the children have to understand, well, that's the main theme of the story, that friends help each other out. And he kept saying, go back quickly and comfort your friend, your mate. He said it more than once. I mean, each one of them said it more than once. Okay, you see where your children now have to understand this theme.
Right, look at what they have to do there. They have to figure out what the theme is, because nowhere in the story does it say, this is the main idea, this is the theme.
Right.
They luckily place it at the end of the story, where we've been teaching students the main idea, the main thing you're usually going to find in the beginning or the very end of the story.
Right.
So if they remember to use that skill, they'll know Brendan needs a friend indeed. And then have to find the sentence that proves that that's the theme. But if they miss that theme, they're in trouble here. And I also jotted down a note about the language. Think about what your children are reading now. If all your children are reading is literature like Diary of a Wimpy Kid,
Right.
and things like that, and the language is very strange, they're going to have a difficult time with go back quickly and comfort my friend, your mate, and say that I am coming. What? They're not going to get that if all they're reading is stuff like Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Right.
So we have to now step up the type of literature that they're exposed to, because if the language in the literature is not rich, they're not going to catch it. And that's the type of test that they will be using on these exams. So any of those books that are Newbery medal winners and Coretta Scott King award-winning literature, Caldecott medal-winning literature, those are the types of books now that we have to start sticking in there. It can't be just a diet of popcorn and soda. We got to start sticking the vegetables in as well.
Because you have to understand with this Common Core that it's going to be across every state. They want their children to be college career ready. And if they don't have that rich academic language or vocabulary, they are not going to be successful at all. So this is part of what we are in a school trying to now have the children immerse them in this academic vocabulary, the language, the way they speak. Because if you look at the way textbooks are written, they're not written in our everyday language the way we speak as laymen. But when you read those textbooks, it's academic language. And like as Ms. Solomon said, that we don't speak like this, do we? We really don't. But the children have to navigate it and be able to take these exams. I'm sorry, the question?
That was one of my biggest concerns when I take her to the library. I don't completely know what type of reading she should be getting, so that's helpful. Yes. When you go to the library, they may point you in the direction of these are fourth grade books, but you're not getting the different aspects and textures and a little bit about space, a little bit about health, and a little bit about the world, economics, and stuff like that.
Right, and those are the things they want us to now expose our children to, because they will not be able to, as they start growing and getting older, in our society, we're going to need to have them know when they're reading academic language, what does it mean, how can they comprehend? I mean, I could read something from an architectural book. I can read it, but can I truly understand it?
Right.
You know what can help you with that? The library has followed the trends of the school. And the trends over the past 15 years now have been independent reading levels and giving students books to read on the level that they read on. And that's fine. But these exams are going away from that.
Correct.
These exams are going back to fourth grade level. So if your child right now is sitting in fourth grade and reading below level T, at this point in the year, then they're going to struggle on this, because by April they should be at, still at T on fourth grade. So now these medal-winning books are going to be written on levels that are higher than if your child is reading at K, M, O. They're going to be written on T. So the push has got to be, while they're still reading their independent reading level books, they have to be exposed to those higher level reading. So if they're not ready to pick that type of book up now for themselves, then that can become a read aloud. That can be something that you sit down and you read a page or two with them a night, because they have to start hearing that type of literature. And it becomes even more difficult if your child is speaks a different language at home, because after 2 years, they don't. 1 year. They give a student coming from a different country, speaking a foreign language, they give you 1 year to get up to speed. And after that, those children are given the same literature and text and expected to perform the same way. Now, in a year, you can develop the conversational language, but not the academic language in a year. So it's, we got a lot to challenge. So when you go to the library, ask for those award-winning books that I talked about. You can also look for magazines like Highlights, and you can probably go online and order subscriptions to Highlights magazine, Time for Kids, Scholastic, I think Discovery Channel, Discovery has one, National Geographic has a magazine for kids. Even just putting them, all of those magazines now have online sites, and you can print articles off of the sites to give them an opportunity to read, so they're exposed to those types of things. And the newspaper, every day, the daily news is written on like a 4th grade level. Every day, sit them down with the newspaper and let them read an article out of the newspaper. Let them look at the stats for their favorite team. Reading those charts and being able to decipher those charts and know how they decided, Kobe is the highest. I don't think it's Kobe.
Not anymore.
Might be my man Carmelo. But that's how they determine, who's the highest scorer in the league. Make use of all of those free things as well, because they'll become very useful.
But don't be discouraged. I mean, if your child is not on the level that they should be now in December, because we do have our benchmark reading level, then that's where you need to come into play. I'm serious. We as teachers cannot do it alone. This is where we're appealing to you guys to be able to sit and just, even with a paragraph, from what a few of the professional developments that I've gone through, they said even looking at a paragraph of the child, sitting with the child, reading it, and then asking the child a question about it, will do this child a world of good in the end. Because without that explanation, without the child thinking one way and then you're going to say, well, no, this is the way, what it really means, that is so helpful to the child. And the children you will see that jump, you will see that leap. But without doing it, you won't see anything. Okay, so that's why we're having this workshop for you to be able to understand what these kids are up against now. All right. So let's go to number 5 quickly. And based on the text, which word best describes the hunter? What do you think? A. Okay, very good. A. Now, there is another one there I would think the kids would choose. What do you think? What else what do you think? Brave. I know. I said, I said the kids will pick brave. And sure enough, here's the child now saying, well, I would have chosen brave. Right. But it isn't brave. So do you see why it would be determined? Okay, so the hunters continue to go on after the young hawks throughout the entire story. The hunters were determined, right? They kept wanting to do something else. Right? So that's why you wouldn't say that they're brave. No, they were determined. They wanted to get one of the hawks to eat for breakfast. Okay?
Why would you say brave? Who said brave?
Is it Jean-Luc?
Why do you think brave could have been the answer, babe?
Because they had to be brave for another 2 people, and they can help them do stuff.
Now you see that?
Thinking?
That's what we have to understand about the people who are constructing these exams. They know that students have been taught that to be a hunter, you have to be brave. So they're going to put something in there that's incorrect, that they know a student will probably choose. But if we teach them to be diligent about going back and checking into the text, then that will help them to discover.
But that's also the word determined. That would deter the children as well. Because if they didn't know that academic vocabulary of determined, then obviously they're going to choose brave. Because they're going to say, well, I don't know what determined means, but I do know what brave means, and hunters are supposed to be brave. They will jump on that. So you see, those are the distractors that the test makers put on, because they're going to feel, well, there is that big $10 word there, determined. Do these kids understand what to be determined is about? Even though it's clearly in the story, we as adults know they kept going at it, and we wouldn't say they're brave, but Jean-Luc will think they're brave, and because, Jean-Luc, did you know what determined meant? That's why. So we have got to expose them to those big $10 or brave words. Right? Yes. Okay.
Because they didn't have
Ah, so it could have been skillful as well. Yeah. Right, right. And I could see children choosing that one as well because they do know the definition of that. And they would see after reading that they were innovative in the sense that they built it. So there you have it. That's when we need to now sit with children and have them understand that the hunters were more determined in order to get the baby stuff off and not being brave or skillful.
And that's why we have to encourage them not to be lazy. Because if they go back into the text and they're taught to go back, not to be afraid to go back into the text, that's what's going to help them be able to confirm choosing between skillful and determined. Because if you go back in the text, you see that one place where they were skillful, right? But you see, right, again and again. But if they don't go back into the story, then they're not going to, they're going to eeny, miny, moe, and choose one.
Right. And that's where we see that the child might choose a wrong answer. And that's where we're encouraging them. Go back. Do not just put your pencil down, I'm finished, and sit there and go, oh, home. Because obviously, we know they got it wrong, but they don't know. But that's what we say, go back into the reread, go back into the question. All right? And so that was the last one for that. Now, the end article. So here you do have a piece of, this is nonfiction reading, and it's all about an article. And you have to read through it, and this is a lot for fourth grade. This is talk about NASA, space, the space center, and then having to go and use art to take the exam. So if you look at number 7, now you see how they even have a font for accept. Big bold font, asking them what is not. A lot of children still don't understand that when we say accept, we mean one of them can't be. The other 3, yes, but one of them cannot be. Children will read the right answer, they will go on A, and if A is the right answer, they'll say, that's it, and put A. They're not looking through every one. We must encourage them. Read through every answer they give, because it's so similar. So, for number 7, what do you think would be the number 7? C? Okay, we have a C and we have a B. Okay. Oh, wait, you didn't do it. Okay, that's fine, because now that I'm looking at the time, we have to move on. The answer actually is B. Okay? Where the rationale is, although the passage does in fact state that this article has career plans, it is not, there's that except word not, one of the characteristics that NASA finds particularly useful to study. Okay? We will give you the website. Ms. Campbell just said, when I went to talk to her, she did not give you this website. We will give you this website. The answers are all there. You can click on it. You can download it again if you'd like, and print it out. The answers are all there for you. All right? So let's move on quickly because I do need to get to math. But I wanted to show you, actually, the short response and then, of course, your long response. So here on page 18, it starts with our short response, which would be day 3. Day 3, book 4. So here you have, now we have a myth, fiction. So we talked about why the evergreen trees never lose their leaves. And then it talks about why are evergreen trees green all year around. 2 separate readings, 2 separate ones. It's not all the same, but you notice how similar. Okay? It's very similar to both, and I'm not going to have you take it for time's sake. So let's look at the question these children will answer in number 12. In the myth called Why the Evergreen Trees Never Lose Their Leaves, why does the bird begin talking to the trees? And here we have it. Use to, and they even put it in bold letters. Details from the myth to support your answer. And it even gives you that statement of write your answer in complete sentences. So here, yes, as a short response, 3 sentences can do the trick. Okay? You don't need anything long and extensive at this time. But if the child decides to write a little bit more, and they have to know what article to go into right away. So looking at why the evergreen trees never lose leaves, and then they go into why are evergreen trees green all year round, and choose the wrong article, obviously the score point would be a 0 because they're going to be answering the wrong, they'll be looking at the wrong text. So now the child will go in and answer why does the little bird begin talking to the trees. There they're going to need to go into that article, pull the evidence from the article to give an answer. So here, a response that could be acceptable would be, the bird has broken its wing and cannot fly south in the winter. Thus it must spend the winter in the cold and needs the shelter that the trees can provide. So they're pulling actually from the text as to why the little bird began talking to the trees. And in complete sentence, everything sounds pretty good, the child will get the score point of 2. But at least 3 sentences will be sufficient in order to answer this question. Okay? And any of the short response questions as you read before. Now, like I said, they can have more, which is fine. But we don't want them going off tangent either. Because then we're going to know they're confused and it lowers their score point. Just stick to the point, answer the short answer, and move on. Okay. Number 13. According to the article, evergreen trees are often found in cold, icy climates where water may be frozen. How does the tree survive in these conditions? Here we go again. Use 2 details from the article to support your answer. Yes, question in that? No, not at all. You can write more, but make sure when you write more, you're not going off topic. You're not like pulling in things that you think. Don't do that to these. Okay, we always tell children sometimes prior knowledge is good, but sometimes it's not. Because if you start talking about, something totally irrelevant, then we will have to lower your score. Stick to exactly what's in the text, give the evidence, and move on. But you got to tell me the why with the evidence from the text. All right? Okay. And same thing goes for the question 13. Okay, so let's take a look now. Here is the extended response on page 23. Now here is where they're going to need to think and plan how they're going to write this essay. So, the myth and the article both provide explanations for why evergreens keep their leaves in winter. How are the explanations similar and different? Use specific examples from the myth and the article to support your answer. Now, here is where the bullets are there on the side in your response. Be sure to do the following. So now we do say to the children, read the question right away. Read everything. Then as you are answering the question, check off each one. Did I, number 1, describe what the myth says about why evergreen trees keep their leaves in the winter? If you have done so, check it off. 2, describe what the article says about why evergreen trees keep their leaves winter. Check that off. Compare and contrast the 2 explanations. That is definitely a prompt from the questions on top. It says on top, how are the explanations similar and different? That is comparing and contrasting both of them, because you have a myth and you have a factual article. Okay, not the easiest thing to do. And number 4, well, you're going to include details from both the myth and the article to support your answer. And yes, that is a check off as well. Did I pull from the text? Did I show the evidence when I explained what I needed to explain? That is the check off. So often we do not see the children checking off as they go along with the prompt. Because these are the things they are asking the kids to provide in your extensive response. I mean, that's not so difficult. Check it off. Yes, we give. Yes, we give them writing to do. Yes, in the book that they are writing in the booklet on day 3, book 4. Yes, they could check it. Oh yes, listen, any of the materials they get, by the way, is theirs. They could underline, which we do encourage them. If you find the answer, whatever, underline it. Do what you have to do. Underline where you got it, and then you're going to quote it correctly as well on your answer. Because we've seen that too. We've seen children quoting from the text incorrectly. But it's in front of you. How could you quote it wrong? And you have it in front of you. Or have spelling words. There's the title, there's the spelling word. And they will spell the word incorrectly. And it's there for you. Okay? So there we also need to encourage the children, once you are going to cite it from the article, cite it correctly. Because it's there for you. So yes, in the booklet, they are writing in the booklet, just like the lines you see, but I just made it shorter because I can't cut and paste all of this stuff for you. Okay, so yeah, let me move on. So there you'll see the example of the extended response. And if you have any questions after we have the Q&A coming up, you can definitely ask me questions on that after. All right, we have to get to the math. I'm sorry. So here, I'm not going to go too long into it. The timing of the math. So this is the one you're looking at now, the Common Core math. Here you're going to see they have 3-day administering this exam as well. You have a book 1, book 2, and book 3. Here, once again, it's about 50 minutes, but it's really a 70 minutes they actually have. And I've seen in the past where the math was a little bit quicker. Children tend to do the math a little bit quicker. They don't need as much time because they don't always have to synthesize everything. I've seen readers that don't really read very well, they actually get it. Understand what the question is asking. But when it comes to the word problem, not going to happen. If they can't read what they're asking, they won't be successful in the word problem. So, like I said, day 1 or 2 will be scheduled to allow 70 minutes. I'm sorry, but day 3, I beg your pardon, will be scheduled to allow 90 minutes, because that's when they now have to write. They're going to have to write their answer. It's not just a computational thing. They're going to have to actually explain, and I've seen where they actually have to even come up with a question, like come up with the answer doing it in written form. So let's take a quick look at this. The test design. So on book 1, they're going to have 30 multiple choice questions, no short response on the first day, no extended response on the first day, and the total questions they're going to have on that, it's a typo. They transpose the numbers. It should be only 30 for the top part. So 30 questions on book 1, day 1. On book 2, they're going to have 32 multiple choice questions again. And total questions for day 2 is 32. So don't forget, the multiple choice weighs a lot. If they bomb on the multiple choice, they'll probably only get maybe the 1, as some of them are saying that it's going to be difficult to get 2s these days, which, as you know, with 2, the kids will not have to go to summer school. The kids, we always took it, there was no summer school, and of course no promotion in doubt. Here, if the kid does not do well on day 1 and 2 and get a 1, you know it's summer school, and it's a chance that if they don't have it in summer school, they will have to be retained in the grade. So day 1 and 2 are very important. Now day 3, here is the short response, and then you have an extended response. So you're going to have 6 short response questions and 4 extended day response. Now, we've always in the past had responses written, but we've never seen it in a short response and then a long. That's kind of different this shift. So we're going to take a look to see how that's going to be on the exam. So total multiple choice questions are 62. The total number of questions overall on the exam is 72. 10 short and extended responses combined. If you turn the page, we are looking at the blueprint of this exam, where the number and base operations is base 10. That's what we are teaching toward right now. The kids have to learn the number and computation-wise is 20 to 30%. So what is that trying to say? 20 to 30% of the exam could possibly be on that strand, in that domain of number and operations in base 10. Another strand could be number and operations dealing with fractions. So if your child is struggling with fractions right now, this is the time to help them along with the fractions, because they're going to see probably 20 to 30% of fractions on the exam. Operations and algebraic thinking, possibly 15 to 25% of that. Measurement and data, another 15 or 25% on that strand. Geometry, 5 to 15. So you're going to see these are the 5 strands. And if you know your child, after your teacher, because we are going to be required not to give you progress reports before, we're hoping to try to get it to parents either by next week, if you could push it, or the beginning of the new year, so that you will know where your child stands. Because we are required to do that right now. We never did before, but this is a high-stakes test. That testing coming up. If you don't know where your child is right now, then that's not good. Because if a child is struggling on 1 or 2 of these strands, you know where your job is going to help your teacher. I mean, Mr. or Mrs. Walcott, they can do what they can. Mr. Nichols, Mr. Stapler, Ms. Maskell, but guess what? You also have to help out in getting them to understand if that's the area their weaknesses are. And after giving them those assessments that this new program, the Go Math, that we have, that is more common core aligned, if you see that your child is struggling in that area, then that's where you need to target as well. Okay? So, all right, let's turn over. Turn the page. And, of course, you know, you could go through it. There's just multiple choice. It could be on any one of those strands. Then there's a short response question that, yes, as we grade it, is going to be 2 points for the short response question. And here, for the extended, though, in mathematics, it will be a 3-point rubric, not a 4 like the ELA. 3 points. So if you take a look over at the 2-point rubric on the next page, it tells you how we have to score that. So here, for the 2 points, to get the maximum amount for the short response questions, that this response demonstrates a thorough understanding of the mathematical concept, but may contain errors that do not detract from the demonstration of understanding. I'll give you an example of that very quickly. Indicates that the student has completed the task correctly using mathematically sound procedures. So, you might say, well, wait a minute. In order to get a 2, but may contain errors, usually it has to be perfection. Well, this is what we've come up with, and after scoring the exams for so many years. Say that you have a problem and you're working through it. But your computation, you say 4 plus 2, you know it's 6, but you somehow wrote a 5. And you kept going on with the problem, using that 5 that you thought was the right answer. I cannot penalize you for that, because conceptually, you knew what to do. It was just your computation. You got nervous, you're nervous on the test. Instead of putting 4 plus 2 equals 6, you put 4 plus 2 equals 5. It's okay. And I could still give you the 2. Because if you follow through the word problem using that 5 though, but if you pull a 7 out of the hat, something like that, no, then it's a 0. But if you use that incorrect number throughout the rest of your problem, you basically can still score it 2 because you knew what you were doing. You just, the computation was incorrect. So here, before though, in scoring, you couldn't get a 2 unless it was perfect, even with that error. With that error, you could get a 1. Now, as I was reading the rubric, I go, wait a second. It contains errors, and you could still get a 2. So then they've now changed even the rubric. So as a trainer myself, when I go to train teachers to score this thing, I got to know that they can have an error in order to get a 2. It's all right. Okay? But remember, though, the basis of the test is that multiple choice. If they fall on the multiple choice, this may not even help them get over the hump. They've got to do well on the multiple choice. So if we look at a 1-point response, is only partially correct. Well, this response indicates that the student has demonstrated only partial understanding of the mathematical concepts and or procedures in the task, correctly addresses some elements of the task, may contain an incorrect solution, but applies a mathematical appropriate process. Same thing like I was saying before too. That also comes into play that if they didn't have an incorrect solution, but shows that they understood the process, it's okay as well. May contain correct numerical answers, but required work is not provided. So if it says on the paper, show your work, they better show work. Because then it doesn't matter if your answer is correct. Once you do not show any work, you are not going to get the 2. Because I don't know if you copied off of Johnny next to you. Do I? I wasn't in the classroom with you. So unless you show me that work, you are not going to get the full 2. Just getting the correct answer is not enough. I need to know how you did it. Okay. Here we have the course rubric for the 3-pointer for the extended response, where this response demonstrates a thorough understanding of the mathematical concept, but may contain errors that do not detract from the demonstration of understanding. Same also as a short response, and also indicates that the student has completed the task correctly using mathematically sound procedures. And that's very important, that the child use mathematically sound procedures that to show how they got the answer. Okay? And of course you can read through the others, it's almost similar. And then of course the 0 would be actually incorrect, irrelevant, incoherent, and contains the correct response around using using an obviously incorrect procedure. So that also can give a child a 0 in this rubric here. All right, so now let's get to actually looking. But I do have also the policies on the back, where this is more for our scoring, how we're scoring and how the scorers have to look at each question. So you can actually look at how we have to do it. Because there's certain things, say for instance, number 1, if a student does the work in other than a designated show your work area, that work you can still score it. Okay? Because years past, if they didn't, we couldn't. But now they're saying we can. It's okay. And when you talk about can they write in the book? Yes, they can. Absolutely. That math exam book is theirs. They can write all over it if they choose to. It's fine. They can do their computations on it. That's fine. So now, here for grade 4, this is the key thing with grade 4 this year. They will need to use protractors. So if you know your child is having difficulty using a protractor, you will need to help them out. You're going to need to show them how to use it, because grade 4 will need it this year. And you can see where other things, like on number 9, where if they have to create a bar graph, they're saying in bullet 2, in grades 3 and 4 only, space between bars does not need to be uniform. So if you know your child is struggling actually in making a bar graph and you're helping them, it's okay on this exam if it's not spaced. But just know when they get to the 5th grade, that's not happening. In 5th grade, in all other grades, the width of the bar must be consistent. So you can even start thinking about next year, in a sense, because here they are specific on how the children are to make those graphs. Okay, and then the next part of it is the tools that I talked about. If you notice on page 13 on the very back, it does say rulers and protractors. Students in grade 4 must have a ruler and a protractor for their exclusive use for all sessions of the test. So it's not only like a day 3 for the extended response, they have to have it day 1, day 2, and day 3. So if you know your child is struggling with learning using a ruler or even using a protractor, there is where we can help you to help them out as well. Question? What's a protractor? A protractor is it's to measure angles with geometry. It's a curved one. It's like a half a moon. That's the protractor. Yes. So they will, and we have the protractors they will be using on the exam, and we will be giving each teacher in the 4th grade, but not only the 4th, the 5th grade will need it as well. That we have enough in order to give for them to start to practice with those. Okay? So you guys have to, it doesn't matter, a protractor is a protractor. You still need, if your child, you know, is struggling with it, you need to help them out on that. And look at the homework. The children are assigned homework with this stuff. So please take a look at the homework if they have it, to make sure that they're doing it correctly. So now let's get into the test. I would like you to try to do as many. We don't have that much time, but if you notice, the first one alone is pretty long. So a student right now just even said to me, what is an equation? So that goes to show you that some of our students still, even after we're saying it to them, we've been, hopefully, I would think we are practicing them, and we do see them in books. The academic vocabulary. And there is where I want to point out to you. When we say equation, we know it's mathematical. We know we're not talking about a baking recipe right now or something that has to do with flying. It has to do with mathematics. So that word alone, if your child does not have that academic vocabulary and language and know that is for math, he will not get it. So he said, well, what's an equation? Which is good. I'm glad that he said that, because then it makes me think and have to relate that to the teachers. We have to have these kids understand when you use the word equation, they have to know what are they going to be writing. Because he's going to go on the exam and he's not going to know what to do. All right? So here it has a part A and a part B. And here it does say, well, the problem reads, Candy wants to buy herself a new bicycle that costs $240. So there's information already there that the child needs to internalize and say, okay, the bike is $240. Candy has already saved $32. So now there's an operation in there already you got to think about. The child has to think about. But she needs to have a plan so she can save the rest of the money she needs. She decides to save the same amount of money. That's more information already given. And if this child is not reading that, forget it. You're not going to know how to do this. Because this is what you call a multi-step problem. And if you guys remember way back when these PAM problems we used to have way back when, this is multi-steps. It's not just step one. There's a bunch of steps you have to take to arrive at the answer. Okay? She decides to save the same amount of money, X dollars. So now they're giving you the X dollar right there. Okay? Each month for the next 4 months. So, here it says part A. Write an equation that helps Candy to determine the amount of money she must save each month. So, the equation. Well, the child has to know, well, Candy saved $32 already, right? What would they need to be able to do step one? Subtract it. So they need to know that, okay, 240 minus the 32 is part of the equation. Then wait a minute now. She needs to come up with a plan to save what she needs. How many months does Candy want to save? 4. So what are we going to need to do after that? Divide it. So the child basically would have to have an equation, parentheses, 24 minus 32, close parentheses, divided by 4. And that will equal the unknown. X, Y, they usually use X, Y, or Z as the unknown. That's what we do in algebra.
Can you say the second part again? The second part of the equation that you just said. Can you say it again?
240 minus 32 divided by 4 equals X, which X is our unknown. That's what you call using, using the X. Sometimes they use X, sometimes they use Y, sometimes they use Z. Those are like the common letters they use for your unknown. And the child would have to write that. Now, conversely, they could solve it a different way. And that's why we do teach children different ways of solving a problem, because there's not always one way. If the child was on that higher level and wrote 32 plus 4x equals 240, that is exactly equivalent to what I just said before. You understand? So either way, if the children wrote that answer, those two are exactly correct. So here, they didn't ask for solving, they asked for the equation. So the child writes that. And here in part B it says, now solve the equation to find the amount of money she must save each month to meet her goal of buying a bicycle. So part A, you need to write the equation. Part B, now solve it. Okay? So here, if they gave solve it in either way that we just mentioned with those equations, then that's fine. All right? Okay. And as you can see, that if you go on, another one under, remember the strands I told you, the 5 strands of mathematics. Here is one with operations and algebraic thinking. There is one where part A and part B as well, where they need to answer students from 3 classes at Hudson Valley Elementary School are planning a boat trip. On the trip, there will be 20 students from each class, along with 11 teachers and 13 parents. Well, you're going to write an equation that can be used to determine the number of boats. Now they're giving that unknown, the B. They will need on their trip, if 10 people ride in each boat. So there they're giving you the equation and B equals, and they have to give us the equation. Actually, this one has an A, B, C, and A, B, and a C. Okay? So they have to show their work, as you see where they have to show their work, then give an answer on the line. Then part C, show your work again, which is still a part of that first question. And then show your work and give the answer on that line. Okay? And we must encourage that if there's a line, it must have that correct answer on the line. Okay. And you can go home and look through the rest. As you can see, there's the other strand of fractions. There's the fractions for number 3. Then there is on page 8, the measurement and data. Okay. For number 4. And on page 9,
ours is not numbered.
you don't have the numbers at the bottom?
No.
Oh, you're talking about, I'm sorry. So actually just on question 5 is the measurement and data as well. So that's question 5. And question 6 is algebra operations and algebraic thinking, where they have to look for a pattern. And if it says, remember, from least to greatest, greatest to least, they have to know which one they're looking at. Because of course there's a distractor where if they're saying least to greatest and they put the greatest to least, and you know they're going to put that on it, the child cannot choose that one. It will be incorrect. And then number 7 would be operations and algebraic thinking once again, where they're going to have to look and see the pattern and choose the correct answer. And then for number 8, this one is a combination of the operations and algebraic thinking, number and operations, and which would be fractions. For number 8. Yeah, turn it over. 7, 8, right here. Number 8 is right there. Okay? And number 9, you're talking about the operations and algebraic thinking. So there you have samples of the questions and what your child will be, asked to do. And it's a lot. It definitely is a lot of thinking, being able to internalize the question, being able to make sure they are answering from the ELA prompt, being able to look at the mathematical questions and even saying, well, okay, how can I set up the problem? Thinking what would be my step 1, what would be my step 2, and the strategies that we try to teach the children, which is in your packet, that I'm going to go through them very quickly with you on some of the word problem strategies we do teach our children. No, those are yours. Okay? So let's take a look at the rest of the packet right now before you ask your questions.
Before you go to that, after seeing this, after seeing the ELA sample and the math sample, what's going through your mind? What do you think this means to you at home?
A lot of extra help. A lot of practice is needed.
a lot of practice. And now before we give you strategy, I want to hear basically what you would do. You know, because we're trained teachers, but you're the first teacher. So what would you do at home?
First few days to make sure that the child is in the house and
Well, how are you going to do that?
by going over with them, using new methods of when you ask other things, not other than what they know, something new or if it's new, like you said, you know, make sure that they have that, make sure that that's to a library, most libraries don't have a lot of work that we do. Like you said, online, having what parents going around, you know, and bringing up some stuff. Like you said,
Discussion. It's you discussing.
Going over the project report with them.
Yes.
That they tell you what they don't understand.
I mentioned the project report to the teachers last year, but they'll know where they're going to go from.
You had your hand up.
I would just probably develop a person at home, probably on Saturdays, and before a set amount of time to go over everything that we need to go over. Probably speak to the teacher as well. In the books that they are using, I'm trying to get a list of the work so that I can also incorporate it at home. So I think that
On budget, which we have, but we have not been given clearance to use yet. So as soon as we have permission to use those funds, you'll see those letters coming home, and we urge you to take advantage of that as well.
Can't the parents do anything to assist and ensure that the budget is there with like bake sales or chocolate sales or anything of that?
Or any fundraiser that's done around the building, please support it. We have in the spring our Walk for the Arts that will be coming up. Please support that. But those funds we try to use for the arts because they give you nothing for that. They've given us, we are designated, this letter came home end of September, designated as a focus school. That means that we are struggling right now. And we're struggling particularly with our students who have special needs. That's the group that's really having the most trouble. So we were given a budget of approximately $121,000 to be able to address that. Now that's not a lot of money, but we have planned what we want to do with that money and how that can support our students. But they have not cleared us to spend the money yet. I don't know what they're waiting for. The exam is in April. I don't know what they're waiting for. Call the chancellor and say, let the money go. I don't know what we can do at this point, but that's what we're waiting for because we do have some funds available and a plan on how to spend it. We just have to be given permission to do so because the plan also includes smart boards for those classrooms so that those teachers have different ways, more visual ways of making that information clearer to that population of students. We just waited for permission to be able to spend that money. And when that does come out, if you have a child who is a special needs student, please let them come to the after school. That might mean that after it's over, you may have to come and get them because the buses won't take them home. Please come and participate in the program because we need that that's the kind of support that we need as well. And when the letters come home, go through their book bags and get any flyers and letters that are out because that's how we're communicating to you to let you know what's coming up and what we have in store. We're hoping to start Saturday Academy in January, but it looks like now, with the way things are going, we may be looking at February like we did last year because we had Saturday Academy last year as well. Look a certain way. That it's not okay to send something in that's half done or that's done shoddily, that's done with very little thought, that's just scribbled out. know what it looks like when they just want to finish so they can go ahead on to something else. That can't be allowed any longer. So that may mean that there's less time for television and whatever else they do. Case in point, the letter I have for Ife Tayo for the right to passage. My daughter has attended that program since she was 8 years old. I had to take her out of it this year because homework for her, she's in the 6th grade now, is much more than she was accustomed to in the past. And she needs Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to do her homework. She can't sit in there until 8:30 and then come home and do homework. They may not have that same kind of problem because the volume of homework won't be the same. But that was something she had to sacrifice in order to get ready for this. So we got to start prioritizing what's more important right now and making sure that we set them up to get ready for that exam, okay?
And you know, when I think about it, because with first grade, you know, there's apps. A lot of them have their Nook. So you might have a Nook for them, or even an iPad. There are apps that you can download, you know, in order for them to work on if they're having problems with that academic language we talked about. There are certain apps that you, or even the books that you feel you cannot get. Because I remember you said there's some